have to get my notes here. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the October 9th, 2024 meeting of the Lake Forest Plan Commission. I am John Dixon, and I'm chairman of the Plan Commission. At this time, I'd like to ask the members of the commission to introduce themselves. I'll start on my far left.
My name is Paul Thomas.
Lisa Nearing.
Louis Pickus.
Jamie Moorhead.
Barrett Davey.
And from the city of Lake Forest, we have Kathy Cernak and
Louis Providence.
Louis. Thank you for joining us this evening. The next item on the agenda for this evening is consideration of the commission minutes from the May 8th meeting. Are there any comments, questions, or clarification on the minutes?
No.
Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the May 8th, 2024 meeting minutes? All in
Motion.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. The first matter before the commission this evening is consideration of a tentative and final plot of condominium to allow each condominium unit in the building now under construction at 1095 Kelmscott Way to be held in separate ownership and to identify common and limited common areas. I'd like to note that the development was previously approved. No modifications have been made to the site pursuant to that approval, use, or building design, none of which are being proposed as part of this request. At this point, I'd like to ask the commission members if there's any conflicts of interest or any ex parte communication on this matter.
No.
Seeing none. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to the city staff. Ms. Cernak.
Thank you, Chairman Dixon. This is a formality. The approvals, as you stated, Chairman Dixon, have already been granted for this development. Most of the development is already built out. For any condominium building, after the building is pretty much constructed, or for the most part constructed, we do need to come back before the Plan Commission for approval of a plat of condominium. The plat identifies limited common areas, and private spaces. Recording of a plat of condominium is required before any of the units can be sold. The units in this building all are under contract. There are 12 units. This is the second and final condominium building in the Kelmscott Way development. That development is located on the site of the previous municipal services facility on the northwest corner of Laurel and Western Avenue. So if you determine that it's appropriate, you could make a recommendation to the City Council to recommend tentative and final approval of the plat of condominium.
Thank you. I think this is just a formality, as Ms. Cernak just stated. So at this point, do we have a motion for approval of the tentative and final plot of condominium to allow each condominium unit in the building now under construction at 1095 Kelmscott Way to be held in separate ownership and to identify common and limited common areas subject to the final approval by the city and all fees being paid in full? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Chairman
Second.
Dixon, I would just ask if there's any public comment, unless if you
Oh.
asked, I missed it, just to be sure.
Before we take a vote, are there any public comments on this item? Seeing none here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. The next item before the commission this evening is consideration for a tentative plat for the proposed Saunders Place 4-lot subdivision. The properties proposed for subdivision is addressed at 275 Saunders Road. At this point, I'd like to ask commission members if there are any conflicts of interest or ex parte communication on this matter.
No.
No.
Seeing none, I will ask the petitioner to come forward. And before we do that, maybe we should swear everybody in that is going to testify here this evening. All those that are going to testify, if you could please stand where you are. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you're about to give or have previously given is true and correct to the best of your knowledge? I'll ask the petitioner to come forward to the podium at this time. Please state your name up here at is the podium, Ms. Cernak?
We are having some technical difficulties, so we're using this projector, but yes, speak from the podium.
Okay.
Thank you.
Please state your name.
Joel Randall. I am the owner's
Welcome, Mr. Randall. Thank you.
spokesperson, I guess you would say. We are proposing this be all private homes. It's, as stated and done by our architect in the handout that was given. Kind of not for sure what you need filled in from there.
Okay.
Would you like to talk through the other slides you provided? We can advance those for you.
So this is the original, this is the way it would look at today. This is at 275 Saunders Road. It's kind of tucked in off of Conway Farms and over by the Abbott Building. The four houses, if you want to bring that slide up, will look something like that with a pond to the very back of it. And that pond is actually in the low-lying area so that we can retain the water runoff, et cetera. It will have some of the trees moved around that are existing there. Some of them will need to be removed. That has actually been done by arborist. They have already given us a fair, that's already been looked at.
Mr. Randall, could you speak maybe on Lot 4 and what's going on with Lot 4 in terms of the side yard setback possibly on that lot?
With that extension up alongside there,
Yes.
that is so that it maintains the amount of area required by code.
Okay. Why don't we hear from city staff, and we can come back to you, Mr. Randall, if we have any other questions. So thank you at this time. I'll turn to the city staff and ask for identification of any issues on this.
Thank you, Chairman Dixon. This is a request for tentative plat approval. For subdivisions, when it's anything more than 2 or 3 lots and requires some infrastructure improvements, the subdivision process is a 2-phase process. You first seek a tentative plat of subdivision, and at this point, we don't have final engineering, we don't have a final landscape plan or a final tree removal plan, but the city engineer has looked at this plan, has worked through, has provided comments. There have been revisions. So from a technical perspective, a high-level technical perspective, the city engineer has given his preliminary approval to the technical aspects of this plan. 4 lots are proposed. This property is located in the Saunders Road area. On the east side of Saunders Road, backs up to some of the homes in Conway Farms. Saunders Road area was annexed to the city about 20 years ago, and city water and sanitary sewer were extended to that area. Once the lots were in the city, many of them are about 5 acres out there. They have development potential, and as I said, city water and sewer are available. As proposed, this subdivision would have a private road with a cul-de-sac. The cul-de-sac is appropriately sized to accommodate the city fire truck and to meet the minimum requirements. A retention pond, as was noted, is located on the far east side of the property, the low area of the property. Both the private road and the retention pond would be outlots. They would be under the control of the homeowners association. They would not be under the ownership of the city. They would not be public right-of-way, and they would not be maintained or replaced if necessary by the city. All of the lots do meet the minimum lot size in the R3 zoning district, which is 40,000 square feet. Lot 4, Chairman, as you noted, is a bit of an unusual configuration. And again, that is proposed strictly in an effort to try and get a fourth lot in there and meet the 40,000 square foot minimum lot size. There is an access for maintenance to the retention area located along the south edge of that Lot 4. Again, this is tentative approval. If you recommend approval at this point, we would move tentative approval forward to the City Council. If the City Council approves it, that would be an indication to the property owner to move forward, expend time and money in finalizing engineering, finalizing the landscape plan and the tree removal plan. That would all be subject to review by city staff, and then it would come back to this commission for final review, go to the City Council before a plat is recorded. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I have one question for you in regards to sidewalks. What is can you speak to that?
Sure. If this were a public street, the city would require sidewalks on one side of the street. In areas of the community where we don't currently have sidewalks, it may not be something we hear from the first owners of the property, but we frequently hear from later owners that they wish they had sidewalks. So if sidewalks are something that the Plan Commission wants to recommend, we would suggest that they be limited to one side of the street.
So we could make that recommendation as part of this proposal?
Certainly could.
Thank you. Maybe I'll turn it over to my far right to see if there are any other questions, requests for clarification from commission members.
I guess my only question, seems like from the staff report that, most of the criteria are met here. My one question is a reason, is there anything on that, and I get it, there's 103 feet on that retention pond outlet that kind of addresses in many ways the setback requirements, but the lot itself on lot 4 doesn't meet the setback requirements. 40 feet, 15 feet is nothing to do with the other 4 lots, and I get it. Look at those lots, they're all just slightly bigger than 40,000 square feet, so we're kind of tucking these 4 lots in there, and that probably makes the math on the development work for these folks. But is there anything else that we've done around kind of the way that we, draw these 4 lots out? Or are we just saying, hey, look, because we're building this, we're creating this outlet with the retention pond, it's 103 square feet of setback. The recommendation is, hey, that's going to be more than enough of a setback to solve the issue of the difference between the 15 and 20 feet requirement.
I do know that the petitioners have looked at various lot configurations and different configurations for the pond. It's tight getting 4 lots on this parcel. It is an area where we've had a number of developers talk about subdividing. It certainly is an area that is distinct from other neighborhoods in the community. So I think any way you slice this up, I think you're going to have some awkwardness in order to get 4 lots. 3 lots could certainly be more comfortable. From the staff's perspective, having that detention pond on the east side certainly provides additional setback, which is the intent of the setback, of the zoning setback. So I think the intent of the code is met in that area.
Yeah, I'm not uncomfortable with it. I just want to understand what the thought process was there, so thank you. That's my only question.
Thank you. Commissioner Moorhead?
I just had 2 questions for staff. Looking at the aerial, there's a whole bunch of, a handful of retention ponds already in this area. So my question is drainage or water an issue in this area? I'm not very familiar with it.
I believe the project engineer is in the audience, and I would direct that question to him, if you don't mind.
Yeah, good evening. Mark Eberly with Nielsen Matson Barber, 1458 Horizon Boulevard, Racine, Wisconsin. So in this particular development and working through with staff and the engineers here and going through the stormwater ordinance here, we're right at the point where a stormwater retention basin actually is not required here. But the client who is building his home on Lot 4 and proposes to build homes for his family members on the other 3 lots really desires this retention basin. So we've got this thing structured so stormwater from the development, the roadway, the 4 lots, and the basin funnel into the stormwater management outlot here into the retention basin and discharge downstream from there. So again, we had a meeting with the engineer, what was it, Kathy, 10 days ago, to kind of go through this thing, and it's right at the break point here, but a pond is what the client desires here, and the pond is going to tackle the stormwater runoff from the site here. So we do have to do a detailed analysis. There is a low spot in the southeast corner, kind of the south end of the pond. We do have to do a detailed analysis showing that we are not increasing the runoff from that storage area that's downstream of the pond. So a lot of technical matters that we will be working out with staff here. So hope I answered your question there.
You did. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then my second question for staff, just kind of out of curiosity, what's the difference between a lot in depth and this design proposal? Because from a plan standpoint, they look fairly similar.
Each of these lots has frontage on a private road, as opposed to a driveway or a substandard road. This private road meets the standard requirements for width of a private road. So these are not considered lots in depth, they're considered to have appropriate street frontage.
Okay, all right. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Pruitt.
No questions.
I know you had mentioned about the trees and all that, that'll be coming up later. It just seems like from the aerial view, like, because you couldn't walk on the property, but there was a lot of coverage in the back, like when you looked at the property. And, you know, they are literally looking like they're Xing out everything. I mean, there's some really nice trees, and just looking at them, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're gonna take these out. Is it gonna be just as full and coverage for the people in Conway Farms? That's what my concern is, because I'm looking at, you know, their plan, and obviously I know it's not set, I understand that, but it doesn't seem as much coverage, and that was my question.
We do not have, although I think a couple days ago I did receive a tree survey after the packet went out, so we haven't had a chance to really analyze that. But we will look at that detailed tree survey, identify trees that are of a good species and high quality, and to the extent those can be preserved, we will. Certainly, assuring screening around the perimeter, I believe there's a recommended condition.
Okay.
That a landscape plan, when presented, really provides screening on all sides around the perimeter, including along the streetscape, north side, south side, and then along the east side to screen those homes from Conway Farms.
I just wanted to double check, because just looking at the plan, it just didn't seem equal. Thank you. That was it.
Yeah, I guess if I could comment on that. So there are a number of trees in the southeast corner of the property now. I believe they're blue or spruce trees. Okay, the bottoms of them are like more blue spruce do. They start to die out in the bottom here. So we would be removing those trees in the southeast corner to accommodate the stormwater retention basin berming. But trees are proposed on top of the berm. Okay, so those trees will be significantly higher and provide more screening from that corner towards the homes here. So, and again, you know, blue spruces all tend to die out on the bottoms over time here. So a number of the trees that are proposed to come out are in that corner.
Can I just follow up on it? You said berm, so does that mean that around the pond, you're gonna be creating more of a berm around all of it and then have plantings? Is that the vision of it? Or if I imagine a pond where it's flat and it's not like raised up and stuff like that.
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of topography on the site as it works its way from west to east, with the lowest point being the southeast corner here. So like any stormwater retention basin, you have to provide a berm along the lower sides to contain the water. So there will be a berm, and I don't know the heights here. I'm guessing 6, 7 feet in height here in that corner with a level top with the plantings on top of it, kind of running north along the east line and west along the south line to contain the stormwater here.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Thomas?
Thank you. I share the concern about how aggressive this proposal removes trees. And if you could maybe just give a little more color on the arborist review, what criteria he's going to apply, and what kind of direction we might be able to give him to be as proactive as possible in saving as many trees as possible to use.
The city arborist process is, again, we look for significant species that are likely to have a long life ahead of them, as opposed to species or individual trees that perhaps are near the end of their life. And then we'll look at the conditions. We know that with a subdivision like this, that there will need to be some overall grading, whether it's for the road, for the pond, for the site. So we balance that with identifying which trees should be and can reasonably be protected and preserved. The arborist usually does not try and preserve trees that are likely to be negatively impacted, and 3 to 5 years later, they're dead anyway. So we will work with the petitioner to understand the trees, and I apologize if the site wasn't open. Next time we'll make sure
Oh, no, it's fine.
unlocked a week or so before. So I don't know if that answers your question, but importantly, we do need more detail on the trees, and we do need a more detailed landscape plan. And I would also suggest that, since the question of the berm was raised, that you add that into the conditions, that there be very clear details on the berm that's proposed, the width of the base, the slope, the overall height. That's something we want clearly shown on the plan as it gets developed to the final phase.
Thank you for that. Just to confirm my understanding, when this comes back to us, we will see a detailed review of tree removal and the complementary landscaping plan that will finish this property off. So we'll get another look at both of them. Thank you.
I have one more question too.
Just to go along with your two comments.
Oh,
As a person that's been maintaining that property, I actually have seen that there's quite a number of those trees that are already showing disease, damage, etc.
Okay.
That in trying to move them will create issues with them being vital or being able to survive even just moving them. And that actually should be somewhere there, because I've actually submitted that already a bit ago with just to get the approval for that part of the permitting process.
Thank you, Mr. Randall. Commissioner Nairn?
yeah, I'm not sure, I might have missed it or what have you. Is there going to be, because they're going to be responsible for these outlets, is there going to be a homeowners association? And they've got to submit all that material, and that would be my question.
Yes, anytime you have a private road and a retention or detention pond, there must be a homeowners association. And at the time, after final approval, at the time the plat's recorded, we would also require that a declaration of covenants be recorded.
Thank you. At this point in the meeting, it's an opportunity for public testimony on this matter. Is there anybody here wishing this evening to speak publicly on this? If so, please come to the podium and state your full name.
Good evening. My name is John Somberg. I live at 210 Saunders, which is a little bit north diagonal from this proposed development. And I have some questions and comments. First, when you drive down Saunders, because there's a barrier so you can't enter from Town Line Road. You have to come around through Conway and up here. You drive through a lovely area of greenery that protects both sides, and you really don't see the houses or people, etc. So I just hope the Planning Commission preserves that and gives concern, because if there's just a couple of trees along Saunders, it's going to change the whole character of this rural area. And that's one concern. The other concern, someone mentioned the drainage, and the answer to that question is drainage is a major problem in that area. The buildings to the north have caused considerable drainage issues, and they've turned areas in my property from non-wetlands to wetlands. And so I think giving careful review of the retention pond is important to avoid any additional drainage problems. I know for a fact, since I go in and out all the time here, and the areas along Saunders that would be to the west of that property is flooded often. I mean, we're a very dry area these days, but much too dry. But in wet falls, springs, and when the runoff of the melt comes, that area has a large, where there's a coverts and et cetera, has a large collection of water. So that's another consideration to able to handle that, because there's a lot of impervious material there with that big turnaround, and then each house has a driveway. And my last question to you is, this is all very flat, but we live in a three-dimensional world. How high are those houses proposed to be? How many rooms? How dense is it going to be? Because this is mostly a rural area. And I actually led the incorporation 22 years ago into Lake Forest. And we, mostly have 5-acre houses, lots here with houses that are screened off. So I'm just worried that they could be 3 stories and, have 10 people in each family or something, and that might overwhelm the neighborhood. So I think thought should be given to that as well, the density issue that this may propose. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other folks here this evening wishing to speak publicly on the Saunders subdivision? Maybe I'll turn it over to the city at this point to ask and clarify maybe some of the points that were just raised concerning the greenery, the drainage, and some of the building height issues.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Dixon. One of the conditions we are recommending is that the final landscape plan provide significant screening around the perimeter of this property, including along the streetscape. Certainly preserving that rural character of Saunders Road is important. When this area was annexed, as Dr. Somberg said, there are mostly 5-acre lots out there, I think about 15 5-acre lots. When this area was annexed, the R3 zoning district was applied, which does allow subdivision of those properties with a minimum lot size of 40,000 square feet. So there was the expectation, once sanitary sewer and water was extended, that there would be some subdivision of this area. The properties on the west side of Saunders Road there, as Saunders runs north and south, do have wetlands on them, some of them. This property on the east side of Saunders Road does not have any wetlands. We have confirmed that. And in fact, the retention pond will drain to the east into some ponds on Conway Farms. So this subdivision, the addition of hardscape in this subdivision will not exacerbate the water issues that certainly are present certain times of the year to the west of Saunders Road. The lots at approximately 40,000 square feet would allow homes based on our building scale ordinance of about 5,000 square feet. So those are large homes. There are some large homes out there, but they are on larger lots. The maximum height allowed for acre lots is 40 feet. These homes would go before the Building Review Board for review. In a public hearing, the neighbors would be noticed, but those are the limitations in the code that would apply to these properties. I believe I hit all those issues.
I think you did. I think you did. The first one was the greenery on either side on the entranceway. I'm not familiar, but with the property and what Dr. Somberg was saying, do you have any comment on that?
Yes, the final landscape plan will be required to provide perimeter landscaping, including streetscape landscaping, along the west edge of the property and along Saunders Road. And then we would look at street trees along the new private road as well. But we have heard that retaining the rural character of that neighborhood, the homes as viewed from Saunders Road itself, is important. So we would ask the petitioner to take that into account, and we will review that when the final landscape plan comes in.
And the city can work with the petitioner at that point on landscaping and landscaping design to help try and preserve that character?
Yes, and we would, again, bring back to you as part of final approval a detailed landscape plan. So you would have another look at this during the final review process.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other final questions from commissioner members, either to the petitioner or the staff? Commissioner Neering?
Yes, to the staff, you were just mentioning about the ponds that they're connecting also with Conway Farms in terms of the drain. Is there going to be, I know that they're going to be individually responsible for the pond, but who is going to actually make sure that that happens? Because if it's not taken care of, or if it doesn't have a fountain, it could affect the other, I mean, how is that going to work?
The plat of subdivision, in cases where there's a private road and a privately owned pond, we will require a note on the plat that states that if proper care is not taken of the retention area in a manner that can negatively impact the homes in that subdivision or downstream or upstream properties, the city would have the right to go in, whether it's dredge the pond or upsize an inlet or outlet. The city would have the right to do that and charge back the HOA.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because it worried me, like, if they're all connecting, and then you could have problems. Okay, thank you.
I have maybe an additional question for the petitioner concerning the sidewalks. Mr. Randall, can you speak on, maybe the ability of adding a sidewalk to one side of the road?
So that is something I've already noted. I will work with our engineering and the owner and see what we can do to that effect. I can't say tonight on 100% certainty that it's one thing, but it's one of those things we will definitely take into consideration.
Thank you. Any other questions from commission members? Anything else from staff?
Nothing further.
Anything else from the petitioner? Mr. Eberly or Mr. Randall, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just want to follow up on a couple of those comments here. I guess one pertaining to the sidewalk. So, in order to continue the rural look and feel and flow and function out there, we have designed our private road with a ditch section without curbs and gutters and that type of stuff here to preserve that. So the ditch section and the sidewalks typically don't interact well together here. And unless the client really wants them, I would suggest we not install them out there. We do have just 4 homes out there on this cul-de-sac here. So just my opinion here. And then as far as back to the landscaping plan, so there is significant vegetation along Saunders Road on the west side of this property, and that will all stay in place. So we're not looking to take any of it out unless it's, dead or dying or diseased here. So.
Thank you. At this point, the testimony is now closed in this matter, and at this point, also in the meeting, it's our opportunity to discuss and comment with just the commissioner members here. Maybe I'll start on my far left with Commissioner Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. Just to follow up on the landscaping discussion we had, I mean, I'm very comfortable with where we landed. A lot more work to do. We get another look at it. I think that second look will be a very important review because there's issues buried in here that are gonna be important to understand when the time comes. But I'm comfortable that the process will get us to that review in an appropriate way.
Thank you. Commissioner Naring?
I just think we need more information, and obviously that'll come from the landscaping in terms of the burn, in terms of the slope, the base, the height, and all that. That's gonna play effect for a lot of things, and it's gonna also affect the drainage in terms of how it is and what's pitched and all that stuff. I think there's some questions that'll definitely be answered when they can go a little bit further. They seem very receptive in terms of open and looking at things and listening to the suggestions and trying to help us and make it better for the community, so.
Thank you. Commissioner Pickus?
In general, I'm in favor of the petition. I think it's a good plan, even with Lot 4, which is a little strange, strangely configured. I think regarding the view from the Saunders Road side, I think there's opportunity there with a 40-foot side yard setback to do a lot of landscaping to shield the development from the street. We're hearing that the site doesn't really require a retention pond, but they're going to put one in anyway. So I think we've got good coverage there as far as drainage goes. And I do think, considering that the development is being made for the property owner and his family, so there's going to be traffic between the houses, I think a sidewalk down the street would be a good idea.
Thank you. Commissioner Davey?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, you all have said what I'm thinking, which is, I mean, ultimately, this is a request for approval of a tentative plat, right? This is going to city council after us, it's coming back to us. If there are issues relating to the size of the buildings, that's going to BRB. And so we have a really great process here. And it sounds like the conditions that have been laid forth in the staff recommendation, that you know, subject to these conditions, you know, you're seeking approval. I'm in total support at this point.
Thank you. Commissioner Moorhead?
Yeah, I'm inclined to support it for all the reasons previously stated. All the questions I had have been answered, and then the staff recommendations are suitable. The only item I had to throw out there was the sidewalk, which it doesn't appear that there's a sidewalk on Saunders. I can't remember offhand.
There's no sidewalk.
There's no sidewalk.
It's
So
a
if we were
ditch
to
thing.
have a sidewalk here, it would be kind of a sidewalk to nowhere, kind of different from what's in the immediate vicinity. And I noted on the property, where is it?
There's a property to the south that has that doesn't look to have sidewalks there either.
382, Mark 382
They don't.
on one of the aerials. It doesn't have a sidewalk in the subdivision. It has one in front of it, but not within it. So I'm not adamant that we require a sidewalk. But other than that, supportive of this.
Thank you. I would echo all the comments that have been said. I'm in favor of the tentative plot here. I think there obviously was a lot of good discussion around the vegetation, the trees, the berm, making it aesthetically pleasing to the neighbors, one of whom was here this evening, which raised some very good issues. I agree with Commissioner Davey in regards to the houses themselves will have to go before the Building Review Board. I do think in regards to the sidewalks, it's something that I think we could certainly recommend that a deeper dive is done on those. I look at it not only in terms of the subdivision and these houses going in at the current time, but in generations to come, 4 or 5 homes on a street, and you have kids, and I also understand and agree with Commissioner Moorhead that, maybe, and also what Mr. Eberly said, that there aren't any other sidewalks in the area, and it might look different. However, I do think it should be studied, and if appropriate, really would recommend that a sidewalk go in there. At this point, do we have a motion for a tentative plot for the Saunders Place subdivision, subject to the satisfaction of the city engineer, the city's certified arborist, director of community development, and the 6 conditions, recommendations set forth in the staff report, plus the other details concerning the trees and the arborist plan?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
The final item before the commission this evening is a request by the city council to consider an amendment to section 159.154 personal wireless service facilities overlay district of the city code to designate a portion of the city-owned parking lot at Telegraph Road Train Station parking lot, 911 Telegraph Road, as a site for a future telecommunication tower for the purpose of improving the poor wireless service in the city's 4th Ward. At this point, I'd like to ask commission members if there's any conflicts of interest or ex parte communication on this matter.
No.
Seeing none, I will ask the petitioner, who in this case is going to be the city, to present this matter this evening.
At a recent city council meeting, the plan commission, city staff and the plan commission,
Can we just ask somebody to be so kind as to close the door there? Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Zernak. Thank you, sir.
thank you, Chairman Dixon, members of the commission. At a recent city council meeting, the city council unanimously directed the plan commission and city staff to proceed with consideration of a code amendment. The council's direction was in response to repeated complaints about poor cell service in various areas of the community, but in particular in the Everett and Waukegan Road area. Cell towers are always a difficult conversation. Nobody wants them, but they are today really a part of our essential infrastructure, really no different than sanitary sewers and water and streets. They're needed not only by individuals, but also by businesses, by schools, and certainly by public safety. So the city has had a number of conversations with service providers, telecommunication companies, as well as tower builders about ways that we could improve service, with a focus right now on that Everett, Telegraph Road, Waukegan Road area. In the late 90s, the city adopted a personal wireless overlay district. Late 90s, cell towers were just coming in as a real necessity. And at that time, the community identified a number of locations, many of which, or all of which you see up here, identified locations for towers, cell towers, and identified locations where antennas could be co-located on existing buildings. We do have cell towers throughout the community. Lake Forest Academy campus, Woodlands Academy campus, on 41 at the hospital, We have antennas on the water tower. I believe those are the locations. But in every case, that infrastructure has been necessary to allow wireless service to be provided throughout the community. Municipalities are required, are obligated, are mandated to allow wireless companies to build out their systems in the community. Lake Forest is at a bit of a disadvantage because those companies would rather invest in communities where there's greater density, where they're getting essentially more bang for their buck. But we continue to press on those telecommunication companies to upgrade their existing antennas, to consider other ways of boosting services. The overlay district has been amended a number of times as we've added different locations. When Old Main was taken down on the Barra campus, there was an amendment to the ordinance to allow a tower to be built on what previously was Barra, but is now the Woodlands campus near South Park. The code was also amended to allow providers to build out what's called DAS systems, distributed antenna systems, which a number of years ago, we felt that would be a minimally invasive way to really improve service throughout the community. The amendment done at that time allowed providers through a pretty streamlined process to come to the city and request the approval to locate antennas on light poles, utility poles throughout the community. Again, that is a cost to providers. The city can't mandate providers to install antennas to be located in any certain areas, but we can try and streamline that process with the intent of improving service in the community. So what is before you tonight is the result of much study and many discussions. This is a proposal to amend the overlay district to add one location. We are not opening up the entire community to cell towers anywhere. We have identified this location. We've looked at options. We've looked at options of including antennas, for instance, in the tower at the fire station on Telegraph Road. That does not provide enough height, so providers are not willing to go in there. We've identified a proposed location in the southeast corner of the city-owned parking lot at the Telegraph Road train station. Why this site? This site, it's on city-owned property, so the city can make it available. It is up against a transportation corridor, like other telecommunication infrastructure along other major traffic corridors, transportation corridors. It is also located in an area, in a business district, and in an area where there are some taller buildings. We have CBIC formerly private bank building. We have the Fifth Third Bank building. This is a parking lot that is not fully utilized. We have a number of empty spaces in this parking lot. And this is an area where service is needed. Importantly, because of many years of real controversy about locating cell towers, municipalities are preempted from making a decision about a cell tower location based on any health-related issues. The FCC regulates any radio frequencies, and I'm probably using the wrong word, but FCC regulates, mandates, and controls emissions from towers or antennas located on towers. I did confirm with the city attorney. I remember that from previous discussions, but I did confirm with the city attorney again, and it was emphasized that municipalities cannot consider health issues. We are preempted from considering health issues. The regulations on antennas and how they operate are controlled by the federal government. what we're proposing, which is different than other towers, the technology has evolved. We are proposing that there be limitations put on the type of tower that could be constructed or installed in the city parking lot. We would require that it be a flagpole type antenna or type of pole without the antenna arrays that are located around the tower. And we just have an image. It is simply a pole, a monopole. It is wide. It has a very large diameter. But the antennas in this type of installation, again, more advanced than what we've seen in the past, the antennas are in canisters that are layered in the pole itself. Obviously, the provider at the tallest point would have the most coverage, but we would anticipate 3 to 4 providers being able to locate in an antenna at this location of about 140, 150 feet, which is not dissimilar to other towers. And we would require that before the city would enter into any agreement with the provider, that they would need to have at least 3 providers committed to the tower, so that we avoid a situation where we receive requests for additional towers in this general location. If we can construct one tower and accommodate multiple providers, that would be to the benefit of the community. With that, Mr. Chairman, I will stop, and I would be happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Why don't we see if there's any questions from any of the commission members? Maybe start with Commissioner Davey on my right.
And not at this point.
Commissioner Moorhead.
Yeah, I have a handful of questions. I'm not fully familiar with this type of technology, but has the city considered the 5G technology with the small cell transmitters and using those in lieu of a tower?
Yes, the code was amended a number of years ago. The distributed antenna systems, the small cell that can actually be affixed to light poles or utility poles, you see those used in the city of Chicago where the density is higher. So the city did proactively amend our code to allow that type of system to be built out in a streamlined manner. We cannot force providers to use a particular technology.
Okay.
So that option is available.
Okay. With the existing towers in the community, have there been any issues that you're aware of related to migratory birds or any sort of environmental impact like that?
Not that I am aware of.
Okay. The towers are going to be lit during the day and night, or how do you know what the lighting requirements are?
The FAA would require some lighting, but this tower would not likely be tall enough to require regular lighting, but we can certainly provide more information on that.
Okay. Are there other dead zones in the city that we can proactively handle here and now with this, or with some variation of this?
This is really the focus at this point. Certainly, we work with providers to encourage them to upgrade their existing antennas. There's been some upgrades recently at the hospital in conjunction with some relocation with the new construction. We're working with other companies to upgrade the antennas on the water tower. At this point, there is not another location identified where a tower is needed, but if you look at that map, the 4th Ward really is an area where there isn't, the closest tower is really the water tower in that area.
Okay.
That has antennas on top of it. So no, at this point, certainly we will continue to work with providers. If there's interest or a need, we will pursue that, but this area is the focus right now.
Okay. And does the proposed tower, will that require guy wires or anything like that in addition to the tower itself?
It will not.
And there was reference to a ground lease in the staff report, so I'm assuming the city's gonna ground lease the tower or the property to a developer who will put up the tower. If the technology changes, down the road in 10 or 20 years, and we no longer need cell phone towers, will the city be able to terminate that ground lease or somehow take the tower down?
Yes, that has actually been incorporated in other leases, that if it's no longer needed, there is a requirement for removal.
Okay. And then last question, I was just looking at the map, and I'm just wondering if the city had considered kind of the view corridors. So if you're coming up, you're headed northbound on Waukegan Road, or southbound on Waukegan Road, actually from any direction. Have you thought about the visibility of this tower and how visible it will be?
The tower's going to be visible, there's no question. It certainly will be less impactful with the internal canisters, internal antennas, than if there were the exterior arrays. The thought is that at this location, with the taller buildings, in the business district, perhaps it may be less noticeable. But there's no hiding a cell tower. I think we all see them all over the place, so. But again, the point is, if it's a sleek flagpole type tower, perhaps it is less offensive.
Right. Okay, that's all I have for now.
Yeah, sorry to jump back in here, but I mean, that is the point, right? I mean, we are talking about a flagpole cell phone tower, right? Do we have a photo that we can
We
share?
just had it up.
Set it up.
Yeah, I didn't see it, because I printed one up.
I did the same.
Yeah.
It-
And I looked at it, and it seemed like, it looked like it was fairly innocuous. Sorry, I was reading all the correspondence that we just received that we didn't have in our packets to get a sense for the pros and the cons, but.
I did
Yeah.
the same thing, Commissioner Davy, and up on the screen now, I don't know if it can be seen at home, but Commissioner Davy did what I did, which is if you just do a simple search, flagpole cell tower, numerous images come up. We're not saying that this tower is going to look like that, but I would imagine that it would look somewhat similar or substantially similar to the image on the screen or the image that Commissioner Davy has printed out there. So that is, but it clarifies really the type of tower that we're talking about, which can be considered a large flagpole, still be it a flagpole, but hence the name, obviously. Commissioner Pickus?
Just one question. Do you know about how much area it's gonna take on the ground level? How many parking spots will be lost?
We don't know exactly, because until we know whether a cell tower would be located there, but probably about 9 to 12 parking spaces. We would want to shift the tower toward the station a bit, but still make sure that there's room around the station for long-term needs that may come up. There would need to be ground equipment for at least 3 carriers, possibly 4. So we estimate between about 9 and 12 spaces, and they would all be the spaces, as we're currently proposing it, up against the railroad tracks.
Commissioner Neering?
Silly question. I know it says flagpole, but does that mean you were also going to put a flag on it?
Those details aren't
Just
aren't
curious.
resolved.
Okay.
But whether a flag at that height, it would need to be very large, whether that would attract more attention to it. There's some
I was just
communities
curious.
who have just stuck with the sleek metal pole with the idea that it attracts less attention. But those details would need to be worked out if an amendment is put in place.
The other question I have is how come, I mean, I know they looked at the train station, but next to the fire station, it looks like there's a parking lot as well, that it could have gone there, but I wasn't sure if it was because of the wiring and all that wasn't chosen. It just seems like you might not see that as much, because from the aerial view, you can see that there's more tree coverage. I mean, I know you would do landscaping, the city would do that, but how come that wasn't?
That location is actually closer to some of the homes in Arbor Ridge, so
Okay.
there was consideration given to trying to provide distance to the extent possible.
Okay. So then in terms of when they were placing it, did they just like between the two towers that you have on Route 41 and with the water tower, they just picked more or less where would the halfway point be, and that's how you ended up on that part of the parking lot instead of the other part of the parking lot?
The companies do their service
just
rings
curious.
essentially. And the corner of Waukegan and Everett was a target area. So this is closest. If directed by the Plan Commission, we can certainly look at other locations, but this seemed to be the optimum location, and if we're going to do it and try to accommodate multiple providers, there is some benefit to making sure it's in the place that's going to provide the greatest coverage, so that we don't run into further discussions about other towers.
Yeah, okay, that's all for now.
Commissioner Tom.
Yeah, just a question about, so I'm trying to get my head around the size of this at ground level. Do we know what the diameter of the tower itself is at ground level?
I don't off the top of my head. It's very large at the base. But I can get you that number.
Can I ask one more? Can I ask a question of staff? And I just kind of have been able to digest all the letters because they're probably, I don't know, it looks like 40 or 50.
I'd say there's more than that.
Yeah,
I mean,
certainly what we
two
have
big
at this
packets,
point.
probably 75 letters.
Okay, yeah, so letters from community members with different points of view. But what someone raised an issue, which I just have a question for you all on, is someone had there were a couple of people that had suggested, hey, could you put it in a different spot, right? And so one of the comments was, about a spot over at 900 West Everett Road, and that was from the folks at St. Mary who sound like they're in support of, the tower because they have concerns with connectivity issues. But I guess as I read part of the staff report too, it seems clear to me that like part of, citing this has to do with, existing power sources and trying to put this in a place where it makes it as easy as possible to actually do this construction. So any comments on that in terms of your process for saying, hey, we looked at a whole bunch of places, we thought this was the best, here's why we thought it was the best. I mean, I've read the report, but I think for everybody else, it'd be good to just get a little more color on that.
The city can't mandate a company to put in a tower. We can't mandate a provider to install antennas, but we do hear from them that this location, Everett and Waukegan Road, is a location where they would invest and they would feel like they got as much bang for their buck. So this location is based on discussions with them, and certainly discussions or comments we've heard from residents in the area, from businesses in the area. Again, locating it near a transportation corridor, Waukegan Road and the railroad tracks, seems to be consistent with other locations. Locating it near some of the taller buildings in the community seemed to provide a bit of a buffer. Looking at a location that wouldn't hamstring other improvements that may need to occur at the train station over the long term. Train station's going to be there for decades, so we took that into account, and really looking at an area where there is some distance between the tower and neighboring homes. So we tried to factor in all those issues. If there are other locations you want us to explore and evaluate, we are happy to do that as well.
So I just want to clarify this for my own purposes, and can you help me? And I think the audience here this evening and watching, the city we're amending our current code to allow this area of this train station for a cell tower to go into this corner of the train station, correct?
Correct.
The city is not building a cell tower, correct?
Correct.
The city is going to then, hopefully, if this gets approved, the city would, to try and help out the residences, again, that we've heard from in a lot of the correspondences that we've received here, for personal reasons, to get the cell service better in that area. The city is hoping to find somebody that would come in, a company, a series of companies, to come in and build this tower, and the city would lease this little corner of 8, 9 parking spaces in the train lot there to this company that would build the tower, correct?
Correct, and we have had discussions with interested companies who have identified this site, but we have not, the city council would enter into those negotiations if there's an amendment that adds this site to the overlay district.
And again, we're balancing where this goes, because while aesthetically it might be possibly better if we go a little farther north and amend the code so that the north end of the train parking lot, I'm just saying hypothetically, the north end of the parking lot were to be developed for a cell site, and we make the amendment there, we might not find a developer there that would be interested if we go that far north, correct? Because the information at least that you have at this point, is that correct, is that the southern end at Everett and Waukegan would be the most appealing to those that would be willing to come in and build this tower?
Based on the discussions to date, this is the ideal site, the targeted site.
Thank you.
No question.
Okay. You have a question?
Yeah, I do, if you
Okay.
don't mind. When you have the rooftop antennas at the other places, how come, and I'm sure you probably already consider it, but you have Cellular Square, you have a lot of businesses there. Couldn't we do a couple of rooftop ding, 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 and make it, to supplement that instead of doing a huge tower? Is that a
Just to
possibility?
be clear, though, Commissioner Naring, we're not doing the ding, ding, ding,
Nope.
ding. We have to get a developer that's gonna do the ding, ding, ding.
know, I'm
So
just saying.
it might not be appealing, and I'm not
well-
making fun, but we have to balance who's going to pay for the ding, ding versus what we can do.
I get it, but
and
I was just curious, like, how has that worked?
We have looked at many locations. Again, we've looked at the fire station, we've looked at other buildings. The height, the coverage that they would get from an antenna that's co-located on one of the existing buildings does not give them enough coverage
That's what I'm
to make it worth their investment, and more importantly, does not address the lack of service issue that we have heard from many about. So again, to try and achieve a location that will incent a company to invest in the community, multiple companies will provide the best bang for the buck to provide as high-quality coverage with the capacity. Obviously, everyone has devices, so it's not only the quality of coverage, it's the capacity. So that is the reason for the location as proposed, that it seems to provide the greatest benefit and be of interest to those who would need to invest in the community.
Thank you. I just think that just helps, because a lot of people would have thought what we were thinking, like, just put them on the rooftops. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point, why don't we turn it over to hear public testimony. For those wishing to testify in this matter, please come forward to the podium here. State your name. I think we swore in everybody at the start, but please come forward. And if there's additional folks that are willing or wishing to speak, if your comments have been stated by a previous speaker, please just note that you are in agreement with the other comments that have been made. There's no need to repeat. But please, welcome, sir, and state your name.
My name is Alan Palmer. I'm actually the precinct committeeman there, and in 394 there, I'm just north of Sunset. And and actually one thing is, last year I canvassed the entire area. I'm sorry, in the 22 midterm. And now there's a 5G box on Everett that's I live on Coventry and Waukegan right there. So it's First Street on the east side. One thing that really is concerning is when she says capacity, okay? Because right now, I don't know if you know, children have historic record rates of turbo cancers, okay? So just so if we could maybe drag our feet on this, is just an idea here. But one of the, is this 7G? Is this 7G?
There is no specific proposal. This would just be a proposal to add this as a permitted location, and there would have to be negotiations following that.
Okay, so as we go to these higher and higher Gs, you know, and you have your phone, and one of the other things when you said capacities, I'm wondering if it's like a surveillance thing, okay? You have to have it right on that corner of the streets, you know, so you can kind of get east and west. It's just but the distance covered on this, I was wondering what the distance covered here, since we're talking capacity, because we do have, and these were brand new 5G boxes, and the way I understood it was, you know, first of all, 5G boxes, and actually, I think there's a 5G box right on Coventry on the other side of my street, on the corner there. They've been in there, Comcast is in there all the time. Wired service has been terrible. I've been home for the last 4 years, you know, I haven't been going downtown. Who are the providers? I'd kind of like to know. There's going to be a difference between if it's, you know, Comcast, or if all of a sudden we got providers like Google and some of these others that are border, but that's not for here. There's also a vacant lot about, I don't know, 400 feet just west of there. Remember where, if anybody's been here for a while, there used to be an accountant's thing there. You know, there's a path that goes right around that pond there and then comes out on the Everett. And there's vacant land there that's at least off there. I mean, it's only 600 feet, and that would be, it's totally trees back, you know, like it's Hawthorne. You know, you could actually put it behind there, actually right by that path. I'm not crazy about this because, you know, I live 1,200 feet max from where this is. And what is the benefit? Like, what is the benefit? Okay, you know, instead of just saying, yeah, it's going to benefit coverage and that, and are there that many people, and is this that important if this is just for cell service? Okay, because I don't notice my phone dropping. Okay, and we bounced around on a couple different carriers in the last 5 years. And then who are the complainers? I mean, is it the church? And if it's the church, I just want to ask if they're paying taxes, because it seemed to be, it was mentioned it was at least that's the way I interpreted it, that it was the church. And if it's only the church, and I get it on the, you know, connectivity, and that's great in schools and stuff like that, but now we're actually moving to get phones out of the schools with the kids. And I would just like to ask to shelve it for right now, because before we give this, before you give this permission, just to maybe, and especially since you had 75 residents respond there. And, and is this free? Is this providing a service that's free in this area when we're talking about this business area? Is this like, am I gonna be able to drop my service and just use that wireless tower that's 1,200 feet away? I mean, so it gets kind of back to the capacity. What are they running? Okay, and that goes kind of right to the cancer I mentioned before. I'm almost finished. I think that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else wishing to come forward? Please. Please state your name and your address.
I'm Haley Cropper. I'm 1035 Sir William Lane. I am actually the house that is about 300 feet away from this proposed tower. And I do apologize. I tried to get as much information as I could, but I was told this was in the early planning stage, so I was just learning a lot tonight as I was reading this report. But my concern is also, we obviously can't talk about health and safety, which is mind-blowing. I have 3 small children. My neighbors have children. It is close to Everett, and I am the closest person to the site, and my husband works from home. His company, he has to have an open line of communication from 4:30 in the morning until 4 p.m. in the afternoon, where he talks to markets all over the world, and if he loses connection, that's a massive loss for his business. He's been doing it since COVID with no issues. So if we're looking at it from a work from home standpoint, in my area of 1035 Sir William Lane and my neighbors, that's not an issue. I volunteer at the school at Everett, which is just down the road, which this will be greatly impacted by. I have fantastic cell phone service. I've texted my children's teachers if I'm needing to come in the classroom because I'm on the yearbook committee. I have no trouble getting through when I'm at the school, trying to get outside of the school. When I'm walking through the neighborhood, I do not drop calls. I drop calls on Waukegan by Christ Church and West Campus, but I just tell people to hold on. I'll be out of it in a second. So I don't understand the urgency where we have so many questions of health, which we can't discuss, property values. What will this do to the property values in that neighborhood? None of us bought our homes there expecting a cell phone tower to be up. And that is a deterrent. It would be for me. I am also concerned with, I did not even know that wildlife has some birds that are migratory actually avoid areas with this electromagnetic field. And we have beautiful ponds there. We have, in the spring, summer, and fall, we have boys and girls fishing out there. There's beautiful ducks that are there temporarily right now. And it's just sad to see any of our beautiful tree-lined streets disrupted by more cell phone access. So I'm just trying to understand the necessity of this. Yes, when you go into Sunset Foods, you can't use your cell phone. But when I go to Valentina, I have to step outside the front door there too to send a text message. I don't have great service where I am right now either. So that's my other concern is it's a slippery slope. I grew up in a town in Tennessee, Germantown, and they had a similar situation, and they put up one of those ugly fake trees that sits about 20 feet above the tree line, and that didn't solve their problem. Then they put more up. Now they have the 5G grid. Every year it was something else. And so now you look outside your window and there's one of those extenders on top of their light pole. And now their cell service is great, but at what cost? We have 30 FCC regulated antennas throughout Lake Forest. Germantown now has 348 and counting. So this is a slippery slope. I know this amendment is just for one, but I don't know where it ends. And I think our town is beautiful, and we need to look at other solutions, or at least wait until we have more information on this particular one before any decision is made. And like I said, in my area, we do not see a problem. And I do not think the risks that have been outlined at all are worth taking, considering what is the benefit. We can talk on our cell phones more. I just don't think that's worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. Good evening. Please
Good
state your
evening.
name.
My name is Andrew Bartolotta. I live at the north end of Sir William Lane in the Arbor Ridge subdivision, very close to our friend here who just spoke. I wanted to provide another data point for you all in terms of the cell phone coverage that I've experienced. I've lived in the area for a little over a year, and I have not once ever had any cell phone issues. If there were a cell tower in place before I purchased my home, I certainly would have never purchased my home, so I'm very concerned about property values. I also have 3 young children. I am deeply, deeply concerned about health and safety as it relates to this issue. I know that you can't consider that, as you say in this document here, but I urge you to consider how you would feel about a cell tower being put up right next to your home, particularly if you had young kids who you loved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bartolotta. Anyone else wishing to come forward this evening? Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Susan Dempf, and I reside at 1240 West Cascade Court off of Everett and Arcady. It was stated that the southeast corner of the lot was up against a transport corridor, that there were higher buildings in that area that would shield the view. And that is perhaps true from the businesses, but it is not true from the neighbors that have just spoken. The east side view would be protected somewhat, as noted. However, the west side view, which is residential, absolutely would be not. Similar to my neighbors, I have concerns about property values and probably would not have purchased the home that I did in that area had a cell phone tower been erected, and it is my concern for resale. Further, the question was asked by a member of this group about the distance from one end of the parking lot versus the other end of the parking lot, and the question actually was not answered. What was offered was that the company would prefer it to be at that end. It did not, the answer did not say whether or not it would be as effective in terms of transmitting a signal. Lastly, I'd like to add that it was stated that it would incent a company to invest in the community. However, the reality is that the builder of this, whatever company it is, pick AT&T, just as an example, AT&T will build it, AT&T will own it, AT&T will lease it, AT&T will benefit from the leases of that tower, not the city of Lake Forest. The only thing that the city of Lake Forest will get is the rental, the lease of the land, which would be paid for by AT&T, not each of the companies that are on it. Whoever owns it, builds it, owns it. Whoever owns it gets the profit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come forward here this evening? Yes, please.
I'm Connie Wiggins, and I live at 1930 Oak Knoll Drive. And I'm not going to say much more than all the wonderful comments before me, other than I have the same comment. We have no trouble with cell service. But I also have been under medical care, and every doctor I've been to is very concerned about what we're doing. And it is impacting our health, and whether, you know, the city of Lake Forest, it's going to affect all of our health. So I just ask consideration for the beautiful place. I've lived here 30 years. These things are ugly, and none of us have trouble with cell service. Why are we doing this? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, please.
My name is Eushelia Wilson. I'm on Telegraph Road. I had two questions. How tall is the tower? How tall is it? Like 60 feet, 80 feet, 160 feet tall?
There is not a specific tower, but the overlay district is recommending allowing up to 150 feet to accommodate
150.
multiple providers.
150 feet, okay. So maybe twice the height of one of our really tall trees would be taller than that. And then we have in, you know, a lot of places in Lake Forest where the utility poles that provide the electricity are very close to houses. What is the magnitude or the difference between what you would get from a cell phone tower as we are getting from the utility poles that we have now? Do you understand my question? So at my old house, I had overhead electricity, and there are lots of studies that talk about the side effects of that and the health effects of that. And so I ended up having it buried. In Lake Forest, a lot of places have overhead electricity that goes to the houses. And so those same concerns are made for the utility poles. So I think it would be worthwhile to look at what is the distance, what is the intensity, how much more effect would there be from the cell phone tower, which is going to be however many feet away or yards away, from a residence than the utility poles that are 20 feet, 30 feet, 50 feet away from a house. So that's just a question that I would have, which you couldn't answer now because I just asked it. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, please?
Hi, I'm Natalie Torcalisi, 271 Everett. And I reiterate, I have lived there for 16 years, and I would have to say the first 5 years I was dropping cell phone service a lot in that area, but now I have not had any issues. So I'm not sure, if this is a continuing issue that people really have had. Why is technology supposed to be getting better, but yet things are, we're doing more, worse? We have really limited understanding of 5G and what the health effects are, and the fact that a government is telling us not to worry about health effects makes me worry more about the health effects, especially with the government that basically, things are upside down right now. And not doing surveys and not doing research and then saying that there's nothing showing that there's a problem is a problem. Because I tried to look up studies and there's not enough. So I think we really need to think twice about it. And just with you saying, like, if we have a contract, what if we end up finding out that this does cause major health effects? Are we going to be able to cancel that contract? Will we be able to tear down that tower when we find out it's causing cancer? And that's my big concern, because I have children, and I don't think it's that important. I mean, if you go to Sunset, they have a wireless thing you can attach to their internet if you really need to have service at that moment. There's a Starbucks there, too, that has internet that you can also get access if you really need it. So I don't think this is something that's that necessary. And it's, I mean, they're constantly evolving, so I don't think we need to build another big tower in this area.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Very brief. My name is Stephanie Greeley. I live at 1171 Telegraph. And I just want to tell you, I am fighting breast cancer right now. So this whole thing is scaring me to death because I don't understand how it came about, what the financial gain for the city is, I have no idea. I mean, I just heard about this recently. So this is something to be really researched and considered, and I just don't think it's necessary to be put in that area of the parking lot in our area at all. That's my comment. Thanks.
Thanks, Ms. Wheeler.
My name is Judy Gavor. I live at 1030 Sir William Lane in Lake Forest. That's in Arbor. And we're asking that the consideration of an amendment for this election not be considered. We'd like you to table that. And we'd like it tabled until we can have more information, a better understanding, and a clearer vision. We read in the Wall Street Journal, Elon Musk has Wi-Fi on the airplanes, and that there are satellites flying around. We live in the flight pattern. Lake Forest is in the flight pattern to O'Hare. Maybe there's a way that we can connect to those satellites if there's a real concern. No one that I've talked to has any problems with their cell phones. It's true, as she said, Sunset Foods isn't so great. You have to connect. And it's true, you can go to Starbucks. If there's a real emergency, there's hardwired phones everywhere. And the firehouse is right there. The emergency people are right there. So we don't feel disengaged from help. I taught at the School of St. Mary's back in the day. We didn't have any problems. So I really urge you to tonight table this until we have more information and a better, clear understanding. I don't think we should open a window that maybe should stay closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else this evening wishing to speak on this topic? Please come forward to the microphone.
It's Alan Palmer again. Who's pushing this is my question. Like, who's pushing this? Because clearly we have the residents here that are all satisfied with what we got. 2 years ago, we got the 5G boxes everywhere on Everett. Okay, right on Everett, at the north of the train station, and it's got to be, I don't know, 200, 300, 400, 500 feet max from the street that goes north and south on the west side of the train station. There was a box. I talked to the guy, and I was like concerned that there was a 5G box. So we've got 2 5G boxes right on Everett, you know, one over by my house, and then the other one right down the thing. Who is pushing this? I mean, because first of all, tech guys are pushy. They're never going to be happy, okay? They will never be happy, you know? And so that's why, and another thing what I said was, with this pinging here, we got the east-west street, Everett, Old Elm, and we got the Waukegan. This appears to me, and I work at home also, same kind of deal as the girl on Surrey Lane, okay? I'm in the same business. And my Comcast has been going out, and that's hardwired service. Okay, not lately, but a couple months ago, must have been 6 times. It was just, and, but that would be my thing. The person, who is petitioning this actually? Is there a petitioner that wants to push this thing? And why are they anonymous?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any other final questions from commissioner members to city staff, maybe in response to any of the comments we've received? Commissioner
Yeah.
Davey.
I've got a question, a few comments. So Kathy, can we just go back for a second? Can you just readdress the issue of the federal kind of implications associated with these health issues before we get on to my next questions or comments?
That certainly was the underlying theme here on many of the 9 folks from the audience that came forward.
Yes. Municipalities are required to allow telecommunication companies to build out their system. And second, the federal government has preempted municipalities from considering health issues, health impact, when making decisions about telecommunication infrastructure. That was a decision that was made many years ago, and it was in response to a great deal of controversy. The towers, the antennas, anything emitted, how antennas are configured, that is all regulated by the FCC. Municipalities cannot regulate, cannot make decisions based on health concerns. Whether that's right or wrong, that is.
Sure.
Can you just repeat the first part? You had a 2-part answer. Give me the first part again one more time. I just want to, sorry, my old lawyer's brain is just trying to dig into this.
Municipalities are mandated to allow telecommunication companies to build out their systems as part of essential public infrastructure.
Sure. But we have, obviously, because we have an ordinance here, we decide where they go.
Correct.
Right.
They're-
And we also can decide, hey, we're not
lease
doing
this
it.
out. Yeah.
We're not leasing that. We can decide that.
The city can certainly decide not to lease property.
Right.
But the city cannot prevent companies from coming in and pushing to build out their systems.
Sure.
And I'll take this opportunity, who is pushing this? The city council, in response to many concerns. You said you received about 50, 75.
Yeah.
My guess is those were about 50-50. You heard from many.
Probably more, to interrupt for a second and to, I'm sorry, sir, what was your name again?
Mr. Palmer.
Mr. Palmer. Yeah, so to set the record straight, the lion's share of the majority of communications, of which are all public record at this point, are in favor of this, okay? Just so we're clear, like, so I would say, because I just counted them all up and did a little chart on my sheet, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't speaking out of turn here, because it can get very emotional, as we can see here, right? And that's part of the problem in America today, is that, you know, we have a lot of emotion in every one of our decisions, and the reality is we have kind of experts who like want to go a mile deep, but then we don't have adults who actually sit in the room and make decisions based on, you know, experts, and then we get emotional impact as well, right? So a majority of the people are saying, hey, you know what, I have a hard time with my cell reception, and we all can agree too that cell reception, hardwired service, Wi-Fi, all very different things, right? And I feel like we've had a little bit of a mixed commentary here on who's got what and where it's coming from and where they feel like they're getting service or not, or et cetera. So just to like kind of level set on apples to apples, right? So it sounds to me like, you know, a majority of the people that we've heard from a public comment perspective, and I get it, they didn't show up here tonight to stand up and talk, right? They sent emails in, have said, hey, I want you guys to put a cell tower up, okay? I can say from personal experience in that area, over 16 years living in the community, I find it to be a very frustrating area. By the way, nobody's crying for me that I can't get a hold of my wife when I'm at Sunset and I want to ask her about whether or not we would need a 12-pack or a case of Diet Coke. Like, got it. Like, I can live without it. But it seems to me like what I'm hearing is a majority of people are saying, hey, you know what, I'd like it. The people that are saying I don't want it, you know, the majority of the people who are saying I don't want it are saying I have a safety concern, right? Which is why I'm asking the questions I'm asking right now, right? And Kathy, I appreciate what you're saying about what the federal government is mandating here. I do want to dig more deeply into that for a second, and then we have some group of people that are raising the beauty issue. Two people got up and stood up and talked about buying houses and aesthetics, and you know, I'm not to like be the guy who just offends everybody here, but I'm not really concerned. Quite frankly, if you put up a flagpole and it looks really nice, like I don't think that changes anyone's property values, and I appreciate like using it as a basis for making an argument, but it's not swaying me as a commissioner about like whether or not we should have a cell service or not, right? But people are raising it. Some people sent in letters and said, I just don't like it. No basis. I'm discounting those letters. And some people sent in letters that said, hey, I'm worried about the process. If you let it happen, it's a slippery slope. Well, that's why we have these meetings and we have this process. I think we have a good process in Lake Forest. It's a really incredible town that's run well based on the boards and commissions that do the work. So I'm not so worried about that. But I do come back to this issue of the safety issue, which is I do want to split hairs slightly so I understand this clearly, because I might have a point of view that's against it, but maybe it won't be against it in the long run. But I do want to understand in the short run, like, you know, this issue of like, you know, hey, if we're saying, hey, I don't like it because I want more information about, am I allowed to ask the questions of like, you know, I'm not saying I'm against it or I'm voting against it because I'm concerned about the health implications, but can I ask questions about the health implications? You know?
I can certainly have the city attorney prepare a memo.
Yeah.
To the commission that would speak to the preemption and the details of that.
Right, because I am not a fan of, you know, just saying, well, the government says it's okay, so I'm doing it, right? I mean, sorry to be for my libertarian streak.
You're on a
here.
roll. Keep going.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but because I'm not just okay with, well, they said it's okay, so we should do it. So I'm hearing that amongst the crowd here. So I just want to be thoughtful about that, which is, you know, look, I want good cell service, and I don't have a problem with I think the flagpole concept is a very aesthetically pleasing, as opposed to like these big cell towers you see with all these prongs on them, et cetera. And so, but I am curious about these issues of potential health implications and proximity to neighbors, and you know, what is our line as a local community versus the federal government telling us what we can and can't do.
We can provide more information.
Sorry for
more
the soapbox, but
that.
that's my concern, and I'm raising it in public comments.
Commissioner Moorhead.
Okay, I am generally supportive of this. My understanding, the Telecommunications Act of 1996 prohibits cities from outright prohibition of cell towers. So we have to consider where to put it. The issues are finding the best most suitable coverage in the least intrusive manner. And based on the staff report and the discussion tonight, it sounds like we've located that. I would urge the city to consider lighting and color of the tower, because I think that's regulated, and I can't remember what the requirements are, but pursue the least intrusive color and lighting. The fact that if the technology is no longer needed, the tower can come down and or the ground lease be terminated is comforting. So I would request the city to consider that as part of its ground lease. It sounds like there's certain technology there now, possibly 5G small cell transmitters or other transmitters that aren't providing suitable coverage. So this tower seems appropriate and necessary. With respect to the health and environmental regulations, my understanding is that the law is cities can consider health and environment, but they cannot apply a higher level of scrutiny than that promulgated by the FCC, which is a fancy way of saying we really can't consider it as long as we're complying with applicable law. So sure, we can bring it up in discussion, but as long as we're complying with applicable law under the FCC, then that's all we can do. And it sounds like we're doing that, and my experience with the city is that the city will require that. And then finally, I may have misheard the staff, but just to reiterate on the staff recommendation, on point 3, we require at least 2 service providers before we can issue a permit, and we require the tower to be able to co-locate 3 service providers. I think it may have been 3 and 4, but just to clarify that so there's no confusion. And that's all I have. So I would support it.
Commissioner Pickus.
Just a couple things for staff. Kathy, if this were approved tonight, what would be the next steps?
The next step would be that your recommendation would go forward to the city council. If you chose to take action, or we can provide some additional information in response to both questions from Commissioner Davey, can perhaps look at some additional conditions in response to some suggestions from Commissioner Moorhead. But if you take action, any recommendation of the Plan Commission goes to the City Council. The City Council would then act, and then the council could accept your recommendation and approve, could overturn your recommendation, deny, or they could remand it back to you for further work. After that, if it's approved, then we would invite tower builders to come forward. The tower building companies are different than the providers, but we know that providers interested in a tower here include AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. We don't know for sure who would go on, but those are the discussions. Those are the expressions of interest we have had.
And then it would just go through the normal permitting process that the city conducts?
The city council would need to consider terms of a lease before it could go through a permitting process.
So there would be more public hearings regarding what's being proposed?
The public hearing is before the Plan Commission. The city council, in entering a lease, would certainly need to do that in a public meeting.
You had mentioned that there's a fair amount of research that went into this before this petition came before us. Is that public information that could be, a lot of people kind of...
We can certainly provide more information about other sites that we've discussed and explored.
I think a lot of people are kind of questioning, you know, this kind of sort of came out of the blue, and what went into, how did we just land on this and why? And I think there's questions out there that people are looking for more information.
We can certainly provide more information.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Naren?
I had a question for staff. In the other towers, how many service providers are in those other towers? Like you've got, the Route 41 and the water tower, is there only 2 providers in that, or?
It depends. I would need to look specifically. Most every tower has at least 2, many have 3 providers.
Is it possible that maybe if I don't know how big the towers are, if they can have another service provider or what have you, is that something that was looked at to be able to add on to maybe those towers, and then maybe there wouldn't be a need for this part? I'm just trying to
The
troubleshoot.
providers are always looking at opportunities that provide the coverage that they need, the capacity that they need, and make it worth their while to invest. It is a business for them.
I was
So
just thinking the
I do
towers
not
is,
believe that any of the other existing towers, they either have the providers on them or have been determined to not be in a location that's beneficial. That's always an option. A tower that's existing is much easier to add an antenna to.
right, I was just
And
checking.
all
'cause
the
I-
companies know that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Tom?
Yeah, I'd like to quickly recap my understanding of this in the spirit of being corrected if I have any of this wrong. So I'd invite other commissioners or staff or any of the public here today to chime in if I have it wrong. But here's my understanding. The city of Lake Forest currently has 6 cell phone towers. That configuration of towers has left a gap in this Everett Road area for service to many customers in that area, not all, but many customers in that area have a gap in service. Those issues have been brought to the attention of the city council. The city council has asked us to address that by considering a code change that would allow a 7th tower to be constructed to better serve this area.
That is correct.
Okay. So going on from that, is there anything about this tower that is unique or different or has a different set of pros and cons than the 6 towers that already exist?
I would answer the question while I'm not an expert. I would say no. But with that said, we're not here this evening, Commissioner Thomas, to get into the technical aspects of what tower does what. But I would say that there's not anything vastly different from my lay knowledge of these towers going in that the 7th tower provides, other than additional coverage for what's been determined as a poor coverage area there in the 4th Ward.
Okay, so that confirms what my understanding was as well. I would have answered that the same way you did. And what I was trying to confirm is we're not doing something unique or different or unusual, but we're undoubtedly considering the same set of issues that went into the consideration of the 6 towers that already exist. And I'm struggling to find anything unique or different about this one. There's lots of pros and cons. I think we've had a good discussion of that tonight, but it's the same set of pros and cons. Okay, good, all right. Having said all that, I'm supportive of the proposal.
Okay. Is there any other additional staff comments on this?
Again, we can provide some additional information. We can provide some further background. We can do some exploration of other locations nearby. We can get a city attorney's opinion. And you've heard a number of questions. You didn't hear from those who sent letters in support, but I think the commission always wants to be as responsive and do all the due diligence possible. So we will certainly provide additional information if that's your desire.
Thank you. The testimony period is now closed in this matter. It seems like at this point, the commissioners do have an opportunity to speak just among ourselves. If we want to add additional comments, maybe I'll start off here. Certainly very cognizant and appreciate all those that have come forward here this evening, especially those that have shared very personal stories with us, and blessings to you for a speedy recovery, ma'am. And our thoughts are with you. Listening to the other safety concerns and health concerns, which obviously we've heard a great deal about that this evening. We're not a professional body that can go in and discuss that, and if I were to guess, that's probably why the federal government has come in and said what they have, which is that we're not the experts in this field to be able to discuss that and prevent communications, necessary communications, from coming in. Right or wrong, that's the lay of the land here that we're dealing with. I would also add that, and Commissioner Davey did a good job of this, there are, we didn't do a full tally, but there's probably more coming in this evening, yet still to the city staff in support of this. There have been some, but there are probably 75 emails that have come in this evening that I'm holding up here in my hand that have been put together for us in support of the self-service. Some of them coming from the local schools in the area saying how poor the self-service is in this area. Again, it can be debated because everybody here in this room, we heard you clapping and cheering that you feel as if the cell service is appropriate there. However, we're here to serve all the citizens of Lake Forest, and the belief and the concern is what the city's hearing from the Fourth Ward, aldermen, that this service is poor here. Now, I would add just a couple of additional comments that the lease does contain, and Commissioner Moorhead, as he always does a great job of highlighting the detail that it sounds like these lease agreements would already contain, but the issue of lights, wires, the important issue of removal if the tower is no longer deemed necessary. Also, further information, I think this was raised by Commissioner Pickus, for just full public disclosure on other sites that have been or could be considered in the area. Another detail that I would add would be that the city utilize, in addition to the footprint of the base of this site, that they take additional parking spaces, which there are plenty of in that area, and we have that knowledge and know that there are 20, 30, 40, 50 empty parking spaces there a day because of the reconfiguration of what's happened during COVID. But with that said, take additional parking spaces around there to plan out the base of this, to hide and make it as aesthetically pleasing to those neighbors, certainly to the west there, if I have my geography correct, and also to the south. Those are my comments. I'll turn to Commissioner Pickus. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
I really don't have anything else to add. I think we've covered quite a bit of ground here. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
I agree. I think we've gotten a lot of information, realized a lot of different things, and I'm the same way you're feeling. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I'm in the same place. I have no additional comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Davey?
Yeah, I mean, turn the mic on. I'd love to see some sort of a legal memo on the topic, and I would love to see, Louis, Commissioner Pickus brought up kind of what was the process, what were the other spots we looked at, et cetera. So I'd love to see that too in advance of voting on this. I'm certainly, could be respectfully overruled by my fellow commissioners, but that's kind of where I am on this. I'd love to see that before I voted in favor of this.
I have nothing further.
So procedurally, I'm going to look to the city for some guidance here. Should we be seeking motion? Should we be seeking, maybe you can clarify based on the requests that have been put out here procedurally, what would the next step be?
Based on the questions raised, some requests for additional information, a continuance would be appropriate if that's the way you want to move. I think we have clear direction from you, whether it's a legal opinion, lights, previous sites, everything that's been raised, we're happy to take some additional time, and I think that is consistent with the Plan Commission's past practices, that you take your time and look at things carefully. So a continuance would be appropriate, and that should be a motion and a second and a vote.
Okay, so thank you for that clarification. I'm in agreement with that. Do we have a motion to continue the code amendment to the city council to incorporate the southeast portion of Telegraph Road train station there for the amendment to the personal wireless service facilities overlay district to the city code?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you again for those here this evening. This matter will be continued based on the information that we just stated, so thank you for coming. Other items, it's an opportunity, we're still in an open meeting here, so I'd ask those. Please, if you can take your comments outside. We're still in an open meeting here. There's an opportunity for the public to address the Plan Commission on matters not on the agenda. Please come forward and state your name for this.
My name is Dan Hodgkinson. I'm at 250 Majestic Oak Court, formerly 210 Ridge, more commonly known as the Gatsby House. And I typically have this effect on rooms, so so thank you, everybody, for putting up with me.
Hopefully that's your spouse next to you and she hasn't left? Okay.
Thank you for taking the time today. We have previously gone in front of the Building Commission. I've been encouraged to come here because the questions that I have are kind of at the genesis of the Wesley Farm subdivision. When the subdivision was first approved by, obviously not you members, but back in 2017, the plots that were shown and then approved, if I can come in.
Mr. Hodgkins, is this, and certainly glad to hear you out, and is there a proposal that you're wishing to put before us, or just for clarification?
Yes, there is a proposal that I want to put in front of you, and then there's a clarification on just the process of the plan.
Because if there's a proposal that you'd like to put forward, it would certainly and should go through the city, so notices can be sent, et cetera. So is it?
So we've actually been reaching out to the city.
We are aware of this issue.
And
We haven't heard back.
And the issue has to do with adjustment of a property line. And I think what we've said is it really is a discussion. The Plan Commission can't amend a plat that has already been recorded.
That's not what
Okay, well, but we've been in discussions.
Okay. So maybe just, I mean, there's no point in showing us anything here this evening, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but, you know, for us to look at whatever you have is great. But we all don't have copies of it, it's not been authenticated, we don't know what you're trying to show us, and so if you could just explain to the issue that you are having, and maybe we can help solve that from there, and if you can go back to the microphone so you could be heard.
So when the Wesley Farm subdivision was created in 2017, the document that I was going to show is just the plot that was approved by the city. So it is lawyer-brained, self-authenticating. But anyway, so we live on one of the plots, and when it was presented to the city, it did not have our home diagrammed on it. And so the plot that we live actually not only violates city code, but it also violates the HOA code. My question is, if there was some sort of element of purposefully not including, because I sat and I've watched all of the plots go up, and there's all the pre-existing homes or proposed homes on plots that come before this commission. If that wasn't included, is there a mechanism to bring that back before the planning commission? And that is a question that I have not had an answer to. And
So, I mean, it sounds, obviously not knowing a great deal on this issue, I don't know if it's a scrivener's error in regards to the plotted survey there. And I guess I'm looking to the city staff. Is there some sort of error that was created? Is there some reason that Mr. Hutchinson's house is not appearing on the plotted survey?
The Westley Farm parcel, I believe it was 40 acres, located on the southwest corner of Ridge and 60. Came before the Plan Commission a number of times, actually, but it was brought forward as a planned preservation subdivision. You often deal with planned preservation subdivisions, which allows the entire site to be developed with lots that may or may not adhere to the minimum lot size. With the Westley Farm subdivision, there's a significant internal open space that's preserved. There are ponds on Mr. Riley's property. And there was the historic house that after the subdivision was approved and after the plat was recorded, was bought from the developer by the Hodgkinsons. The developer, as I recall, was asked to market the house, the historic house, for maybe 2 years. I may be wrong on that. And after that could request approval to demolish it. But the subdivision went through the appropriate process. There was, I mean, I think the file is probably this thick with all the different images that were provided. It was approved based on a recommendation from the Plan Commission, approved by the City Council. And again, the plat was recorded. There's nothing the Plan Commission can do to change a lot line that is on a recorded plat. There is an opportunity for property owners to talk with each other to do an administrative property line shift, but that is not, the city cannot initiate it. There was no error. The plat was recorded as it was approved, and the expectation at that time was either that the historic home would be demolished. Fortunately, it wasn't. But there was an acknowledgement that the whole entrance to the historic house, which used to come from Ridge Road between a couple of pillars, that would be impacted, and that likely a garage would need to be relocated or built. So there is a long history, but there's really no role for the Plan Commission to force the developer, who still owns the lot to the north, to give a portion of that property to the north or sell it to this property owner. The plat is recorded.
What's the remedy here? What should the direction should Mr. Hodgkinson go in? What?
The only direction would be to talk with William Ryan Homes. They own the lots both to the north of you and to the south of you. If there's some interest in shifting those property lines, the Plan Commission cannot initiate that. There's a plat recorded with the county, and we can't force someone to give a portion of their property to someone else.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Then what are you trying to do?
Yeah, so I'm not trying to have the Plan Commission rezone or do anything like that. That's not at all. I'm looking for if the Plan Commission, if William Ryan purposefully didn't include my house in his original plat, is there a mechanism to bring something back before this board?
I'm just trying to understand, what are you trying to do?
It feels like-
You guys have a house, it's on a lot. Are you concerned about your lot lines? Like, what's the issue?
It feels,
So long story short, our garage is 17 feet away from the lot line. We can't turn into to our garage. And William Ryan has just put up a metal fence today, and so we can't actually utilize our garage. William Ryan has said he wanted our house torn down. Talking to William Ryan, I mean, I'd rather run into a brick wall. He hates me. But the issue is that the way the lot was originally presented to the planning committee did not have our house on it for that exact reason. And so if there is a fundamental flaw in the way that this was presented to the plan committee. Is there a mechanism through the plan committee? That's what I was.
And I can assure you that in all, and I don't even remember how many meetings at which the Plan Commission considered this subdivision by a couple different developers, as a matter of fact, but it was clear that the house was there, and a house wouldn't necessarily be, and most often is not, on the plat that's recorded at the county. But there were many images that went before the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission, again, put a requirement that that house needed to stay for a certain length of time and be marketed before it could be demolished. So the Plan Commission was very aware. I don't believe there was any fatal flaw, and if there was, the plat's recorded. There's nothing this commission can do to reverse a plat that is recorded with the county.
So, just so we're understanding, the plan committee would have approved the lot sizes and approved a lot line being so close to this home, saying that this home would have stayed on the property.
Right, so that's.
That's our concern, is when it was brought before this committee, you know, it shows we've got such a close lot line to get access to our garage. The city would have said, yes, this lot line looks good, even though this property owner, if the house is to be saved, would never be able to access their garage nor build a driveway to get to the garage. They would have to demolish a historical garage and redo it. That's where we're confused. We're not sure how this would have originally been approved lot line with the home where it is.
Especially because it's in violation of and I know nobody can deal with HOA stuff, I get that, but it's also in violation of the HOA guidelines that were put into Wesley Farm. So to not say there was a fatal flaw, there absolutely was a fatal flaw. And so because of that, what is the remedy?
So Kathy, you said that there's a note that the garage was going to need to be moved?
That was part of the discussion. There was a lot of discussion of the house. As noted, I think the developer would have preferred to demolish the house to start with. There was a requirement the house be preserved. The lot was configured around the house.
Was it?
Plan preservation, again, plan preservation subdivision, you are not obligated to adhere to the minimum lot size. In fact, 26 lots on the north side of the subdivision are all smaller than the minimum lot size, and the standard setbacks do not necessarily apply. So there was, the plat was recorded, the property lines were in place, and after that occurred, the property was purchased and the historic home was restored. Certainly commend you for that. But again, the house was known, the location was known, it was fully acknowledged that the driveway would be significantly altered if that house were to be saved.
But the house was historical, and so you can't alter the driveway.
So you bought the house with the plat of subdivision having been recorded and the garage existing at the time you bought it?
So again, William Ryan, he didn't include the house to the plan commission, and then when he submitted it, he showed our house having a front load garage, which it doesn't. It has a side garage. We live in a historic home, so we can't, even if we wanted to, I can't move the garage over. So, the garage doors, yeah. So, the fatal flaw is William Ryan showing the plan committee that I have a front load garage, which I don't. I don't have the ability to move my garage doors, and the lot itself doesn't comport with the HOA guidelines that would have had to have been approved by the commission. So the only...
Hey, I lived with it because I didn't have a fence in the way, so I would just turn onto someone else's property and pull into my garage.
Well, so to further complicate things, when the subdivision was created, the 26 lots, if you're looking at Wesley Farms to the right, those are like spec homes that are built and people move in. The I think 9 lots to the left, where my house is, has always been marketed as someone will come, buy the lot, and build a custom home. Well, William Ryan, no one is buying those lots. So now he, I don't know how, got approval from the city to build spec homes on the 9 side, even though they're advertised and in the covenants are built custom homes. So because he's doing that, and because he doesn't like the fact that we save the house 30 days before demolition, he's building on the lot that will build a house directly in my front yard, which, okay, I bought the lot, I bought the home knowing that was a possibility. The issue is the Plan Commission knowing the fundamental flaw, not even a fatal, it's fundamental. When the Wesley Farm subdivision was created, it doesn't comport with the laws, with the mechanism that would have been approved. So the only thing that I can think of is that William Ryan presented to the board then, the garage is front-loading, which it's not, or didn't include it, which clearly, if he did, any commissioner would say, there's in your bylaws, there's a 20-foot set-off. You don't have that.
Mr. Hodgkinson, I appreciate you coming forward here this evening. It sounds like there's obviously a dispute, disagreement with William Ryan and you, and what was related to you, what was made known to you at the time of your purchase. This body right now, I don't think is the remedy. I know it's not the remedy for you, because there is no mechanism that we can go back and open up a plot of survey. Whether it was done correctly or incorrectly, I'm not here to debate that. This Plan Commission is not here to debate that. But the mechanism procedurally is not to come here this evening, whether it's to open it up some other way and look at that plot of survey. That's what you want us to do, is procedurally open up that plot of survey. And what I'm telling you is procedurally, I don't know what that mechanism is. Maybe there is a mechanism out there for you to do that. And my suggestion to you would be to, if that mechanism exists, go find out what it is, bring it back before us, and then we can hear that at that time. However, this evening, other than bringing your issue and attention to us, which we appreciate, that's the purpose of having this open forum, there's nothing we can do for you here tonight. And I know that's painful, and I'm sorry for that, and but there's nothing that we as a Plan Commission can do.
Yeah, so just the question was, if there was either an element of fraud or if there was an element of fraud, is there a mechanism through the Planning Commission? And I didn't know the answer looking on the website and all that. I don't know that. So I'm not here coming for you guys to wave a magic wand. I'm well aware of limitations. I wanted to know if that was a potential mechanism that this body would know about.
And I don't think, we're not in a position to opine on that. I don't, you'd have to either check with the city or check with an attorney on whether there's procedurally a mechanism to open up a
And
plot
I've
of
been
survey.
checking with the city since 2018 on this exact issue.
I have an email right here from 2021 where Kathy says she will get back to me, and I never heard. And Kathy, I've been emailing you.
The options that we have come up with and communicated through other staff, an administrative property line can always be considered, but that needs to be agreement between the two adjacent property owners.
And in addition to that, though, and I hear that, but I think what the Hodgkinsons are trying to figure out is whether there is a mechanism to open up the plot of survey to, it's like opening up a legal case that's already been decided. Within 30 days, you can do it. After 30 days, you have to file procedurally, whether it's a criminal case or civil case, you have to go through procedural steps to be able to open that case after 30 days. Clearly, we're past that here for the plotted survey. They're asking to open up the plotted survey because they have allegations that William Ryan created fraud. Whether he did or did not, I have no idea. But that's what they're trying to do, is open up the plotted survey.
And we don't have the ability to to repeal essentially a subdivision.
So I
Again,
think that's the answer.
administrative
So there-
property
the
line-
city's probably not getting back to you because there is no mechanism that they're aware of that they can open up this plot survey for you to look at and voice your grievances now as the property owners. And maybe there is, and maybe it's going up to Lake County Courthouse, and it's a land dispute between you and William Ryan. And I know you probably don't want to go through that step, but that would probably be the step
Well,
that
yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
recommend.
that's obviously where this is headed. I am an attorney, so my office is in Waukegan, so I can do that, that's fine. I wanted to go through the proper channels. I've gone to the building commission. I've been pleading with the city to get me an answer or to help impose the rules that it put in.
But I think the city is in the same position that we're in right now, Mr. Hodgkins, is that the city can't go back and open up the plot of survey. You know, we hear you, we don't have and we're not a court of law, but we don't have Mr. Ryan before us either, nor do we have the ability to adjudicate that. So, you know, my suggestion to you, which is probably what the suggestion that the city should make, is that you have a dispute with William Ryan. My suggestion would be to and you're an attorney, file an action up in Lake County. And because administratively, you've exhausted what you can do at this level, at the city level and at the plan level, whether it be the VRBO, whether it be the Plan Commission, whether it be the city itself. Administratively, I think the conclusion here, from what I'm hearing, is that your options, you're out of options. You know, administratively, you've done everything you can at the city level. Therefore, your next option is to appeal it, if you will, to Lake County.
Okay.
And the Building Review Board also had the same discussion as they considered a proposed house on that property to the north, so.
Can I make three quick observations? One, to the extent there is a fatal flaw, we're not in a position to know that. There may not be one, so I would encourage you to look at the minutes of the Plan Commission hearings to determine whether, in fact, you have a basis in fact for that. Number two, if you bought property subject to a recorded plat of subdivision and the property was improved, then you're taking subject to all that. And that's a question for you, the attorney that did the due diligence review when you bought the house. It's not for us. And number three, we don't review HOA.
No. I'm not asking for you to review HOA. That is, if that's what came off tonight, that's the furthest thing. And I'm aware that I bought my house subject to the existing bylaws. Those bylaws aren't followed, and they're not followed from the city itself. So me coming before the Planning Commission is the commission started Wesley Farms. So if we find that everything was presented falsely, I wanted to know if there was a mechanism to petition Kathy or the board to come back and say, this is what happened, can we open this up? And you guys have given me that answer. That's exactly what I was looking for. I wasn't looking for someone to say, oh yeah, Danny, you're absolutely right, you'll get this tonight. That's not, I mean, the wheels of justice grind slowly. I'm very aware. So I appreciate everybody's time. I wanted to know procedurally, and unfortunately the city was not getting back, and now I have a metal fence that prevents my use of the garage. And this is an issue that I've brought up since I purchased the house. And so if they were going to build, I'm blown away that this is what has been allowed to occur. So thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. On agenda items, is there anything else from the city? I know you issued the new calendar, so I would ask the fellow commission members to look at the calendar for 2025. Let us know if there's any dates on there that absolutely don't work for you. It's easier to maybe try and plan that out now. And maybe looking forward, other than the possible continuance of the cell tower issue November, December, meeting-wise?
The only thing on the radar is the continuance of the cell tower discussion. Eventually Saunders Road, I would hope, would come back. some of the Saunders Road petitions have not come back.
Right.
But I wouldn't expect that probably in the next, certainly not in the next 30 days, so that may be pushing it off.
Okay.
But I would expect that we'll want to have a meeting next month to continue the cell tower discussion.
Great. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Motion adjourned. Thank you.